So now it's being recorded.
Hi, Dan.
Hello, how you doing?
Good.
And
We will start on time in 2 minutes. All right, it is 6:45. Let's bring this meeting to order. This is the City of Newburyport Conservation Commission, December 5th, 2023. Meeting taking place on the Zoom platform. This meeting is being recorded. The first item on our agenda are the November 21st, 2023 meeting minutes. Anybody got any comments, changes? Carol, you are muted.
Okay, I'll say it again. I move that we accept the minutes as written.
Second.
Roll call, Steve Moore,
Yes.
David Vine,
Yes.
Carol Wagon,
Yes.
Dan Warshall,
Yes.
Bill Mullen,
Yes.
and I vote yes. All right, next item, Plum Island updates. Julie, we got any Plum Island updates?
not many. The only update I have is that the city and DCR jointly will be sending a letter to the Army Corps of Engineers requesting that they initiate a Section 111 study, and the Section 111 study under the Army Corps of Engineers is a study by which they look at whether or not their work on a Army Corps structure or project is the cause of damage to another sort of public resource, so we're asking them to look at whether or not the jetty is the cause of the erosion on Plum Island. And this is the, we know that it is. Other studies have elucidated that, but this would be Army Corps acknowledging that if the study shows that, and then in that case, they would come up with solutions that they would be able to pay for to fix it. So this would be very good. So we're going to start that hopefully soon. Don't know how long it would take. There's another thing going on concurrently, which is that the Army Corps is also undertaking what they call a major maintenance report of the jetty, which will also look at whether or not changes to the jetty could alleviate the problem. So there's sort of two things happening simultaneously, two tracks by which we're trying to get to a solution for this erosion problem.
Hadn't they in the past denied that they were part of the problem by the jetty?
They did deny it. Yes, they did a very small study. You might remember that. I think they called it the
Yeah.
DOT study. And they took a really cursory look at the situation and concluded that they were not the problem. That was like before COVID, that was years ago. Since then, more information has come out. The DCR had their sediment transport study, which showed pretty clearly that it is the problem. So they're doing a lot of modeling right now. They decided to look into it a little bit more closely, and their modeling and things are showing that more likely than not.
Okay,
They've
so
changed their tune.
yeah, okay, so it's not just gonna end like that last time.
No, I don't think so. I think they've acknowledged it at this point. They just have to go through the processes of, sort of confirming it. Yeah.
And
So
I
they,
think excuse me, I think the modeling will be done in the spring.
Mm,
From conversations that I had at the Corps, I went to a retirement ceremony there.
good.
So
Yeah. That's what they've indicated, and that's what we hope that they are sticking to that schedule. Fingers crossed, because it would be great the sooner that we can know something, the better, right?
so this won't necessarily take years.
Well, it won't take years to get like what Bill's referring to, the conclusion of their modeling, which is under this major maintenance report on the jetty,
Yeah.
that they're doing this modeling work. The modeling work will hopefully have a result of that in the spring. But the 111 study will take a few more years. But the modeling results, if we can get an answer from them, then the next step is to come up with the sort of engineering designs, plans, and then money appropriations to fix it.
So will they do that before the 111 thing is done, or do they have to wait for that?
They're gonna go on at the same time. We're hoping
Okay.
that they'll start the 111 study, and that will go on its own track. Meanwhile, we'll see whatever happens with this major maintenance report and the results of that. And I mean, one might impact the other in some ways. The results of the major maintenance report, if that says that you need to put a weir in the jetty, well, then the 111 study, if it also says you need to put a weir in the jetty, that will be paid for out of a different pot of money. And the 111 study might recommend a few other additional solutions as well. So it's kind of complicated, but yeah, they can go on. They're not mutually exclusive, and they can go on concurrently, and that's the goal.
Okay. So they need to be very careful about the size of that weir, because if they make it too big, they're going to have a problem south of the jetty with erosion.
Precisely.
Mm-hmm.
So they're looking at all that.
Okay, I assume Tom will be representing tonight, right? Is that your understanding, Julie?
Yes, but actually no. So I mean, it is his project, 6 Julia Street. He is the representative for the property owner on that notice of intent, but Tom is unable to attend tonight.
Okay.
So I believe that the property owner, Mr. Newton, is here. Looks like he's here. And given that the only necessary items were a small update to the plan and getting the DEP file number, that Tom didn't think it was necessary for him to.
Okay, yeah, I was only asking because then we could have moved on to the other issue, but I think at this point we should just take care of the public hearings and look at the other National Grid thing after.
Okay.
So can I take a motion I will take a motion to open up public hearings.
So moved.
Second,
Roll call, Steve Moore,
Yes.
David Vine,
yes.
Carol Wagon,
Yes,
Dan Warshaw,
Yes.
Bill Mullen,
yes,
and I vote yes. All right, first item is Peter Newton, 6 Julia Street, notice of intent, which is continued from 11/21/23. All right.
So, I'll just quickly speak for Tom. I moved, Peter Newton over to panelist so he can answer any questions that you have or give an update. But essentially at the last hearing, this project, which is to do a small addition and rebuild a deck on this existing single family home, which is primarily outside of the flood zone on Julia Street. It's on higher ground out there. They needed a DEP file. There were no additional questions at the last hearing. They just needed their DEP file number, which they have received. And there was some small updates to the plans, which involved just being a little bit more clear about the planting plan. So here's an aerial of the site. Again, it's a double lot. They also own this garage right here on the right-hand side. This shed would be coming out, I believe. And I'll just go quickly to their revised plans that were submitted so you can take a look at the update. And maybe Peter, if you want to just give the commission a quick update from your perspective on this, what's changed, if anything?
Yeah, I think one of the things we added was just a potential selection of plantings. There were only a few small areas that I think that we planned plantings, and there were a few questions around that. Could you, could we potentially substitute some of the plantings that we had on the design from 2 weeks ago? So we've done that and added some more variety here.
Yes, and that came in a separate email from Tom, which I don't have up. It was an email that he sent, which I forwarded to you all today. It's just a planting list of additional native species, approved native species for the island that they wanted the ability to be able to substitute in and out in some of these areas.
Yeah, I just had one comment on that. In that, especially in that triangle area, if you could pick something tall, like the pine, I think there was a pitch pine and Atlantic cedar and maybe a black cherry, and then something shorter than that would fit underneath it, so you'd have a layer of stuff, a tall layer and then a shorter layer. It would provide more habitat and food value for birds and things. Just consider that.
Okay, and just so that I'm clear, Steve, where's the area that you're referring to? And that
It was that
right
triangle
there.
area.
Yes, that triangle that Julie is highlighting. Yes, thank you. Yep. Yeah, that makes sense. Sure.
And then if there's room, put some beach grass or something in.
Yeah, we plan to do that. Our neighbor has been doing some nice things, so we want to at least match, what he's doing. So
Yeah.
Yes. And we've had conversations with him about that.
Now, I have a comment. I wasn't at the last meeting, but my understanding that the addition is going to be demolished, the area in brown there, and the foundation underneath is going to be removed and rebuilt on helical piles. But if you look at the left and right views of the as proposed project, you have to scroll to another page. It still shows the foundation. Now, the question, of course, I guess is for Tom, but that's the existing. But if you scroll down to the proposed plans.
Yeah. Hold on.
Yeah. Now, isn't that showing the foundation still solid, and isn't that supposed to be open?
Right here, correct?
No,
Or is it this side? Oh, no, I see what you mean. The addition is actually this. Right. 2-story deck addition.
Yep, but when you're looking under,
But I don't think anything was being torn down.
Yes, it is. The
Um,
foundation
oh.
for that one floor addition is entirely being removed.
So that should not be in the background of that. You can see what are probably piles, next
So
to,
this addition
Right,
right here.
right there, right there.
okay,
That's still showing the foundation being in place.
True. That's a good point, Bill. So, Peter, this is the new addition, correct? What's being removed and reconstructed?
Yes, that's right.
Yeah, so we should actually, these plans should be revised to show that to remove this depiction of the solid foundation here and to show the helical piles clear underneath instead. And this is something that, because it's a correction to the plans, rather than necessarily a change in what you've proposed. This could be done, the commission could still close the hearing and vote tonight. And as long as you submit a revised set of these elevation drawings to us, before we actually issue the order of conditions, then the commission can still close tonight.
yeah,
I'm just curious now, is there another angle on this that does show the piles?
yeah, like, well, that one does, doesn't it? Wait,
It
One of
shows the
them
piles
it
under
as
the deck,
Yeah,
but not under
yeah,
the
okay, it
addition.
shows those files, okay.
yeah, so there's two.
Yeah. That's a good catch, Bill, because sometimes what happens is then that these are the drawings that get sent to, that get submitted for the building permit, and then everything gets very confused, when it comes time to
Sure.
confirm.
Then a further, it's probably a real small comment and it probably, I'm pretty new to the commission, so, a couple things like we normally strive for, open fences and open lattices. We don't do the same for stair risers, do we? That's a pretty
Yeah.
minor thing, but
Oh, you mean like over here
stair
on the,
risers, yeah, to the decks, they're still, you know,
we
a
asked for that
barrier.
to be, yeah, that's a good point too. We asked for that to be open. So we have a standard condition in our order of conditions that I
Okay, the plans aren't shown that way. That was just
Okay.
a small
Okay.
thing, and I don't know if you've bothered with it, but I guess you do.
well, we can't, we have again, I think I just actually closed the file, but we have a standard condition in our Plum Island order of conditions that when there's an addition or when there's a new deck or something like that, that we have a condition that there can be no lattice or other enclosures around the new addition or the new deck that must be left completely open underneath. So if you want to keep that in on this order of conditions, then that would be appropriate.
So are those existing steps? Peter?
No, those are new steps.
Okay, the
Same
ones on
thing.
the left are new steps?
Yeah, we're removing all existing steps, right?
Okay.
And it
Yeah,
says.
so they
And
should
we
just-
will, yeah, we will not have enclosures on that, so
Okay,
we're very happy with that. And I think we spoke on the last call about no lattice work on the core deck, but you're right,
Yeah.
we didn't talk about the stair risers.
So I'll just send an email, and I'm sure you can be in touch with Tom as well, Peter.
Mhm.
Just sort of noting these changes that need to get corrected on the plans.
Yep.
How about DEP? Did they have any comments when they gave the number?
No comments from
No.
DEP, no, just they issued the file number.
all right, do we have anything else? All right, hearing nothing. Anybody from the public have any comments or questions? Raise your digital hand, if so. All right, I don't see anybody. Okay. Is there a motion?
Motion to close the hearing.
Second,
All right, roll call, Steve Moore,
Yes,
David Vine,
Yes,
Carol Wagon,
Yes,
Dan Warshall,
Yes.
Bill Mullen,
Yes.
and I vote yes. All right, thank you, Peter. We're gonna close the hearing and head into the order of conditions.
Great. Thank you all. Thanks,
all right.
Julia. Okay,
Peter.
take care.
Thank you. All right, can I get a motion to close the public hearings?
so moved.
second,
Roll call, Steve Moore,
Yes,
David Vine,
yes,
Carol Wagon,
yes.
Dan Warshall,
Yes.
Bill Mullen,
Yes.
and I vote yes.
Oh, excuse me.
All right, off to orders of conditions, and the first and only one is Peter Newton, 6 Julia Street. Do we have, well, we have one thing with wanting the updated plans.
Yes, so I will get in touch with Tom and I will make sure that he submits a set of updated plans that show the helical piles rather than solid foundation under the new addition, and no cedar shiplap or other lattice or other enclosures around any of the decks, additions, or stairways. That will have to be submitted prior to issuance of the order of conditions. And then we can have a special condition within the order of conditions that says that there shall be no enclosures around the decks, additions, or stairways. The area beneath must be left completely open.
Okay,
Do we have to add anything about the plantings, or is that all set now that we've got the list?
That's all set, and there's conditions in the order, in the draft order already about, only native plantings, any damage to existing vegetation must be replaced with natives, no soils or mulches, only beach grade sand can be brought in. So that combined with the landscape plan that they've submitted and the planting list that they've submitted, I think covers that.
and it's in there about a 2-year monitoring period too, I
And the
believe.
2-year, yes, that's in there as well, already standard. Added that.
There was a type error also in the notice of intent. It says Peter Brandt instead of Peter Newton.
Hmm.
The very opening narration, I don't know if that's worth
Yeah,
fixing.
that probably doesn't matter, but I have to say, really great work catching the error in the plans, Bill. I completely.
That's all we
overlooked
had
that.
to do this week.
Yep. But that's really, that is exactly the kind of thing that causes problems then when they get their building permit. And the contractor has this set of plans and they start working and they don't, it just gets messy. So,
Yeah,
thank you.
we had a similar problem not too long ago with another one that we missed something.
Mhm.
I don't remember what it was, but
Yeah. And they'll make a change and then submit for their building permit, but then we don't get the change and then it's just a mess. So this way we can try to keep everything as
okay, so anybody else got anything for the order conditions?
No.
Nothing else, Bill? All right, get a motion?
motion to issue the order of conditions.
Second.
All right, roll call, Steve Moore,
Yes,
David Vine,
yes,
Carol Wagon,
Yes,
Dan Warshall,
Yes.
Bill Mullen,
Yes.
and I vote yes. All righty. So Julie, you had another item to discuss?
well. This is a very quick, we're looking at an aerial of 2 Basin Street right now. This is for under enforcement. We got a phone call from a neighbor and it happens to be a neighbor on Basin Street who we dealt with an enforcement issue with because he installed hardscape and patio, etc. And he noticed while taking a walk that this particular property here has just finished installing a solid sort of paver patio, stone patio.
Yeah.
Lovely, it's large, and it's right in this location, right adjacent to the street corner, very much in view. And I don't have a photo of it right now, but I can send you all one tomorrow, a number of photos. In any case, question is, what do we do about this? So I would suggest we send a letter of violation to the homeowner. Just wanted to let you all know and see if anyone had any thoughts, if you'd seen it yourselves, whatever.
I have not seen it, but.
Uh,
No,
I haven't seen it, but we need to get them in here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll send you the photos tomorrow and I will CC you, or I'll send you all a copy of the notice of violation.
okay.
Had there been previous work done on that house that we had
No,
approved?
no, not that I know of, and that certainly was not something that would have been approved. So you'll see when I send the photo, it's pretty significant. Unfortunately, it looks like some good resources went into constructing it.
Did they get a building permit and that didn't get sent to you to?
I don't know that they need a building permit for a patio.
Oh.
So, that's a good question, but no, I didn't get anything on it. And that probably is because they didn't need a building permit. If it had been a deck, they would have. I don't think patios require that, but, I can confirm.
What was it vegetated? What was it before they did this?
Well, this is the photo of sort of before or an aerial of the previous condition. I'm not really sure what that is. Whether it doesn't actually look vegetated to me, to be honest. It looks like a lot of gravel, and potentially sand or driveway space. It's hard to know. But certainly what they constructed is clearly not permittable on the island, and it is very plain view, and it's not small. So, and given that the person who brought this up is someone who had to remove his own hardscape under an enforcement order, it's obviously something that needs to get addressed.
The pictometry shows it pretty much completely clear. Just the way it looked like in the regular aerial. So at least from an angle, yeah, it's pretty much looks like it's all sand or even
Yeah.
asphalt maybe.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So we'll have to bring that owner in and
Okay.
handle that one, but so moving forward, that I'll take care of that. The next item under other business would be the National Grid site. If you want, I can move on to that one. These are the photos so just to remind you all, when you're walking along the rail trail and you get to that corner where right before you hit the National Grid sort of chain link fence, it bends around and there's this sort of ugly depression that we keep talking about that they were supposed to vegetate as part of their seawall reconstruction project. And the vegetation at first they didn't put any vegetation down, they just put crushed stone because they said it was sort of collecting water. And then we said, well, you can't just put down crushed stone, it's supposed to be vegetated. So they came up with a number of different planting plans and have attempted numerous times to get things to grow in this little triangular area. Nothing has grown. So Steve went out there, and we've been struggling with them for years over this. Steve went out there after the big rainstorm that we had last week and noticed that it was ponded with water and started taking photos. And then a couple days later, right, Steve, correct me if I'm missed it. Do you want to just tell this, Steve? Why don't you do a better job than me? Yeah.
Okay. So I went down there last Monday, because we had quite a bit of rain the night before. And I just wanted to see if there was going to be any water in there. Well, I went at high tide, and it was a 9.5-foot tide, and the pond was completely full. The culvert that goes through the seawall out to the river, you couldn't see the top of it. It was that full. Now I've been down there a number of times, and I've actually never seen any water in there. But anyway, I know, David, you go down there more often than I do, I'm sure.
Yeah, what I see is in the, let's say, right-hand corner of the photo is there's a small pond there that's
Yeah.
totally, it never goes away. And I mean, it might be frozen now, but there's always collected water there.
So anyway, last Monday, I saw that, and that was about 11 o'clock in the morning, and I went back down there at 3 in the afternoon, and the pond, it was pretty much empty. That led me to assume that was tidal water in there and not freshwater runoff. So the next day I went back on Tuesday, and there was a 9.4 foot tide. So I went down there an hour and a half before the tide and took some pictures and kept going every half hour. I didn't have much to do that day. So
Clearly.
high tide was at 11:48, and that pond didn't start filling until sometime between 11 and 11:15, which
Wow.
surprised me. I thought it would have started filling sooner than that. So anyway, I kept going back every half hour, and at 2:45, when I got tired of going there, the pond was still just dribbling a little bit through the culvert. And I was surprised, given that how quickly it filled up, how slowly it drained out. Anyway, I went back the next day when there was let me see, I got something here on my computer. There was a 9.2 foot tide, and there was no evidence that any water came in from the tide. So it was, because for a couple of those days, there was a pretty strong wind blowing out. So that could have kept the tide down. But then I went back on, let's see, on the 30th, the 31st, and the 2nd, and there was no new water in the pond at that point. So, there was a 9 foot tide, and 8.7, 8.4. So then I got curious, and I went through the tide tables for the next year. And there's anywhere between 5 and 9 days a month when, if there's a 9.3 foot tide or higher, that pond would be completely full. So I don't know whether National Grid, what they planted in there, if it was salt tolerant. There is one shrub in there that looks to be doing very well. There's a couple of plants in there that look like they might be seaside goldenrod, but they don't look real good. And other than that, there's not much growing in there. And National Grid seems to think it's well vegetated, which I very much disagree with. So I'm going to go back a couple times. There's a 9.7 foot high tide in January, and then there's a 10.3 foot next October. So,
Okay.
What makes you say that National Grid thinks it's well vegetated? I mean, is that
Julia got an email from them saying,
Yeah. So I sent this, recently sent them an email saying, what is going on next with this area? It's still not vegetated. They've tried multiple times. We need an update. We need a monitoring report, etc. And we need to know what you're doing moving forward to get this area vegetated. She responded saying that, they knew that it wasn't hugely successful, and they weren't sure why, but at this point they felt comfortable that it was enough, that vegetated enough with ground cover, that they felt like it had achieved the criteria for which they could apply for their certificate of compliance. And that was before Steve sort of did this research project here and really identified the fact that this particular area is getting inundated by the tide when it's over a certain elevation. And so after Steve gave me this information, I forwarded this to National Grid and said, look, we now feel pretty strongly that there's an issue with tidal water inundating this area during high tides, and that is most likely the cause of the inability of vegetation to grow here. And so now we have two problems. One is that the vegetation plan needs to be revised to include salt tolerant species, and or you really need to take a look at the engineering of this stormwater system and the basin and the pipe, and the fact that they didn't know that this was a problem at high tide, tells me they need to go back to the drawing board and look at the pipe, look at the elevations, and see whether or not there's something they can do to prevent this from flooding, because it is adjacent to the rail trail. They did just spend a lot of money rebuilding the seawall, and now we're getting an area that's going to flood at high tides and potentially in storms. And over time, with sea level rise, is really only going to get worse and could potentially impact the stability.
I did go down there yesterday because we had almost an inch of rain Sunday and Sunday night. And it was at low tide. And there was actually quite a bit of water in there. So there is some stormwater runoff that does go in there, fresh water.
Okay.
But
Yeah,
Combination.
I was looking at the rainfall numbers from like the 27th, and upstream, there was about an average of a half an inch of rain. So, that's also going to raise the level of the river at that time too. It may have assisted in this flooding too, but it would be interesting to see during high tides, especially like maybe tomorrow, whether there's any added stuff coming in, because we got over an inch and a half of rain in the past,
right, but
past few
the
days.
high tides right now are pretty low. They're like 7.5 feet.
Oh, okay, well, that's quite low. Okay.
So Julie, when you sent them the pictures, they didn't have, that's when they said that they thought everything was fine, or they didn't
No,
respond?
they said everything was fine before. I sent them
Oh.
some recent pictures. When it was dry, I just had gone out and taken some photos of the fact that nothing was really growing in this very confined area. We discussed it, I think, at our last meeting, and the idea of maybe, because it's just an eyesore and we want them to do something, maybe plantings like some shrubs for some habitat value and also just to screen it. And I sent them that information and those photos, and they responded saying that they thought that it was sort of fine. And then Steve came in with this additional information about the flooding and sort of tidal heights and things like that, which I then forwarded to them also and said, hey, actually, we now have a new theory as to why nothing's growing out there. We think that it's this tidal influence, and I have not heard anything from that, like zero. So I don't know whether they're just processing what I sent and thinking about it and doing some research of their own, but I haven't heard anything. So I will email them back again tomorrow and just remind them we'd like a response. But I also think we might want to just ask them to come in. I mean, they do have to eventually come in and ask for the certificate of compliance, but I think prior to that, we need a real conversation with them about what do they think. They're the engineers. They designed this whole area. What did they think was taking place here? What do they think is taking place here now?
Do we have a list of what they planted?
Somewhere. Yeah.
Yeah, if you could find that and send it, because I can look at that and tell you whether they're salt tolerant plants or not.
Okay. Might have been in their last monitoring report, and then prior to that, they did send us a plan. I'll take those out.
Because if this is covered anywhere from 5 to 9 days a month, something's got to be pretty salt tolerant. Because if you look at a high marsh, salt marsh, it's mostly Spartina patens, salt marsh hay, and very little else. There's a few other things.
Right. Goldenrod and things like that.
Yeah, and it almost seems like there's some erosion going on too, because you can see a channel like in the bottom left picture there. You can see.
Yeah, I don't know if that's erosion or it's just a low spot that they didn't get the right grade or what. But
Yeah,
that low spot in the right corner, lower corner, that is always wet. I mean, they managed to create a pond there.
Okay,
Yeah, there's a good sized cedar tree that's not in the picture that's kind of upstream from that little bit of pond there. And that had water around it when I was down there on that real high tide. And they're tolerant to that, so it's not an issue for it. But you know, as tides get higher and sea level gets higher, you know, something might happen to that.
yeah,
Anyway,
okay,
yeah, I'd like to see them come in and explain this.
yeah, I would agree. We can at
Thank
least
you,
have a
Steve,
discussion
for-
on what they think.
Doing all that good work there.
Yeah, I assisted. I was out there too. Just wanted to put that in there.
Nice, thanks, Carol.
I did nothing, but I just happened to
She
run
was
into
out for a
Steve when
walk.
he was out there.
Oh, awesome.
Funny.
I would
Teamwork.
confirm that we did see that. That's the way it looked. But I just wondered, I mean, at this point, they probably can't do anything until spring anyway, can they? Or just, or I guess it doesn't matter. We just need for them to have a plan.
Right.
Yeah.
And I don't know if there being salt water on there is new to them or what.
Yeah, I don't know.
Well, it's probably not too new since the stuff really wasn't growing anyways, so. It hasn't been for quite a while.
You know, they could put a flapper valve on the culvert.
I was wondering if they had one originally planned for that
Yeah.
location
Yeah,
and
I don't know.
just not working.
Yeah,
I don't know. You can't see the seaward side of the culvert unless you want to climb over that chain link
Yeah.
fence.
I'll go back to their original design drawings too for the seawall and see if it shows anything about that outfall.
Okay. All right then, do we have anything else?
Motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All right, roll call. Steve Moore,
Yes.
David Vine,
Yes.
Carol Wagon,
Yes.
Dan Warshall,
Yes.
Bill Mullen,
Yes.
and I vote yes. Good seeing everybody.
All right.
Okay.
Hey,
See you in a
Everyone,
night.
couple of weeks.
Night.
Good night.
do we have a meeting on the 19th?
we do, yes, we have a
Yep.
meeting on the 19th, and that will be when we hear the Pioneer Field project again.
Oh, brother.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
No changes in plans yet on the Pioneer?
Not yet, not yet. I hope we'll get them, but they want to go to the planning board first, and so probably won't get it till after.
Okay,
See you then. Thanks,
all right,
everyone.
see you guys. Bye.
Night.
Bye-bye.